Thank you, everyone. As I said, my name's REILLY. I am there. Okay, good. The Regional Waterwatch Facilitator in the Upper Murrumbidgee. I'd like to acknowledge traditional owners, the Ngunnawal and Narragansett people on the lands that we work on in the Murrumbidgee. But as Auntie also said, the Upper Murrumbidgee is a shared space with a range of different traditional owners, and it's a really fascinating history with traditional owners. I also like to acknowledge the volunteers, the Waterwatch volunteers. We've got over 200 odd volunteers collecting water quality data for us and makes this very talk possible. I'd also like to acknowledge Isabel Booksmith, who is the citizen science data analyst in the ACT government and makes our data into amazing pictures and graphs. I did originally say we were going to look at 25 years of Waterwatch data, but we actually were looking through a lot of the data, and we found that the way that the Waterwatch program used to run, we had a lot of gaps in a lot of the data and a lot of sites. And it's been in the more recent 10 years where we've been very careful about improving data quality and being very strategic in our placement of sites, that we found we've had really good continuity. So well, I'm looking more at the last 10 years. And I guess it highlights the need to have good scientific rigour and approach to how we do citizen science. And we're starting to reap the benefits of that with Waterwatch as our data is becoming more powerful and more useful as we go along. Ooh, that's a good start. Flip it around, going the wrong way. So you're going to hear a lot of the stuff that you've heard from Danswell and Nancy and Maxine and Andy already. That's good. I think I personally need to hear things multiple times before they sink in. So hopefully things will start to make sense as we go along. There's the map of the Upper Murrumbidgee that you've no doubt seen already. In this case, it's broken up into slightly different colours, which is the main subcatchments in which Waterwatch works in. The pinky purple one being Cooma, where Antia runs. We've got the yellow, which is the Southern ACT, where Martin here today helps to manage. We've got the light blue, which is Molonglo. The pinky one in the middle there is Ginninderra catchment, and the green is the Yass. And so the red stars across that are the Waterwatch sites where we have dedicated sites that the, thanks, Claire, where we have volunteers go out every month and collect dedicated water quality data for us. So that's one of the main aims of the Waterwatch program, is very much at the core of the program. We encourage community engagement and education. We are collecting data, but we're also getting that data used. So just for those who aren't familiar with the program, and I apologise to the many who are, so the volunteers go to those dedicated sites. They've given a water quality kit and trained in how to use it, and they collect 7 different water quality parameters every month for us, which are listed there. We also, the Waterwatch staff also go out with the help of volunteers and collect water bug data. Water bugs, aquatic macroinvertebrates, are an excellent indicator of river health. The types of bugs you get, some are more pollution sensitive than others, and the number of bugs you get will help give you a really good indication of the health of your river. So we do that at 100 sites across the region every spring and every autumn. And we also do riparian surveys looking at the native, non-native, the canopy, mid-story, ground covers along those rivers to get a sense of the riparian condition as well. And we do those every 2 years at our sites. So we combine all that into what we call the Catchment Health Indicator Program report card, the CHIP. I've got a copy here that people can have a look at today if they're interested. And it's also available online. We release this every year as a report card of the condition of the Upper Murrumbidgee. We break it up into reaches, which we find is a really good sort of level in which we can look at at a level which is good for management, but it's also good for communication, in that you can work your way down a section of river reach by reach and look at the issues that each present. Because each reach that we break it up into the different types of land use and the different significant confluences that you get in a river. And so it's a way of being able to get the best reflection of the health of that section of river. So the example I've got up here of the report card is the Murrumbidgee between the New Morella River confluence and the Bredbow River confluence. You get a map and a picture, you get a summary of the data for that year, and an overall CHIP score, which is a combination of that riparian, water bug, and water quality data. So we collect the water quality, as I said, every month. There's at least 2 water bugs surveys that go into that, and riparian surveys at all sites. And so what you get every year is this total of all these different reaches, which is roughly about 100 reaches across the upper Murrumbidgee that we do these report cards for. And we roughly get about 2,000 surveys collected every year by volunteers. So it's a pretty amazing effort. I mentioned this reach system because I'll be presenting a little bit of data. It's site-specific, but I'm also talking about those reaches quite a bit as well. So that just gives you a bit of context on what I'm referring to. So this is a summary of all the CHIP reports we've done since 2015. And it's showing CMM1 is our reach of the Murrumbidgee River above Tantangara Dam. And then you're going all the way down the Murrumbidgee River. We have 13 different report cards that we report on the Murrumbidgee River. And the CMM13 is the reach just above Burrinjuck Dam at Tamus Bridge. So you can see there's a trend in the water quality of a decline in water quality as you go downstream. It's almost perfect above Tantangara. It starts to, I can shuffle over here a bit, can't I? Yeah. It starts to sort of decline a bit as you get the Breadbow River coming in, and the New Morella, I should say, and the Breadbow. It tends to stabilise a bit in the Murrumbidgee River corridor in the ACT. It gets a bit of a spike up when the Cotter River comes in because the water quality is quite clean, although it's a bit offset by the Paddy's River, which is not so clean. You get a drop when the Molonglo River comes in for various reasons. And then the water sort of stays a bit low as you go out. If you see the Murrumbidgee River at Tamus Bridge, it's really a culmination of all the man-made impacts that we have. It's shallow, it's full of sand, and it has very poor riparian and water bugs. Just to emphasise the water quality issue, I suppose, people talk about flows a lot in the upper Murrumbidgee and the impacts of Tantangara Dam on taking substantial flows out of the river. But I suppose the thing that's less emphasised is that impact that has on water quality. The Breadbow and the New Morella rivers do provide a significant input into the Murrumbidgee River in that upper section, but they are predominantly rural streams that have poorer water quality. And so you might get more water, but you're getting a reduction in water quality as a result. So that certainly has an impact on the quality of the health of the upper Murrumbidgee. So a little bit, as we've mentioned before, I'll just talk about the last 5 years or so. We've got a really nice cross-section of drought, fire and flooding rains, so it's really throwing all the different water quality parameters at us, so I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. This is the image that we're all too familiar with of the Murrumbidgee River ceasing to flow in 2019 at the height of the drought. That was preceded by significant fires and then rain that sent the Murrumbidgee the colour of Guinness, seems to be the popular term for it today. It's a new coin, we're going to coin a new phrase. So the ash and the sediment that washed off the landscape at that point was devastating. The timing of those storms and those fires couldn't have been worse. This is fine silt and ash on the banks of the Paddy's River, and you can see someone on their motorcycles had a bit of a go there. This is the Bogon Creek up in a highland stream in the Murrumbidgee National Park, completely devastated, washed out, sand, slugs and sediment, completely filling up some of those creek channels where they were quite deep. You couldn't walk across the river to places where the volunteers were saying that they could only make it a hand deep in some places. It was so full of ash and sediment. So the results in our water quality showed really high spikes in turbidity. The nutrients released by that fires was really devastating, really high levels of phosphorus, often beyond what our water quality kits could measure. And also high levels of nitrate, nitrogen in the form of nitrate, and it's smothering that river habitat. So water bug numbers just plummeted because so much of the areas where the water bugs persist just wasn't there. So this is a map that comes from Rod O'Brien and Joseph O'Connell at University of Canberra that shows the intensity of those fires across the Murrumbidgee. The CMM sites are the waterwatch sites down the Murrumbidgee. And they looked at the area between CMM 705, so downstream of the New Morella River, all the way down to CMM 150, which is at Uriara Crossing just before it leaves them, ACT. So the river had inputs from the New Morella and the Badger rivers that had significant fires in late 2019. Then you had significant inputs from the Redbow River that was also impacted by fire. You had inputs from the Gudgeonby River, where the entire 80% of Murrumbidgee was burnt as well. So you had really, and the paddies as well. So you had significant inputs from fires in 4 major tributaries going down the Murrumbidgee at that point. And you can see that in this graph also from Rod and Joseph that shows those 2 major fire fronts that came through in late 2019 and early 2020. And you can see the turbidity, the phosphorus and the nitrates all just spiking after that. It does appear in those graphs to settle down, but the amounts of phosphorus is still evident in some of our reaches, higher than it was pre-fire. And often with the flows, we've had a lot of remobilisation of the sediment and ash from the fires that continues to be seen through the river. These are photos Antia's taken only in October this year on the Badger River and on the Murrumbidgee, where you can see that sediment and ash still evident through the system, and that legacy of those fires will be felt for many years to come. So yes, then we just got a little bit more rain just for good measure after the fires. Into 2021, we had the 5th wettest year on record. As I said, the ash and the sediments continue to mobilise. This is the New Morella River, the Murrumbidgee at Cooma near the pumping station, and that's at the Lower Cotter. So a little bit wet, yes. We had a lot of fun trying to get in to do our water bug surveys and not get washed away. You started to see improvements, thankfully, in 2021 as that rain continued. A lot of in-stream vegetation was bouncing back. Really great ground cover and riparian areas were improving. You were getting a lot more clearer water. The turbidity and the phosphorus, while present, was certainly settling down in a lot of places. And dissolved oxygen seemed to improve across the board as well. Interestingly, it seems we've seen also in 2022, when we're going out and doing our water bug surveys, that we're seeing very pollution-sensitive bugs appearing in places that we've never seen them before. This one here is called a stonefly. They like very cool, clear water and lots of dissolved oxygen in the water. And we often call them fluffy bums because the gills that you see at the bottom of the abdomen there look a little bit fluffy, so they get that name. They are appearing in places like Gurman Ponds Creek that runs into Ginadera Creek. You've also got Cooma Back Creek, which is a highly rural and a little bit urbanised as well. These are areas where we don't normally see such pollution-sensitive bugs, but they are showing up in places over this last year. So it's been great to see the rivers, on the whole, improving. So that's the end of my story, is it? We don't have to worry about it. If it rains, it's good. If it doesn't rain, it's bad. No, not quite. So we had an interesting thing happening as those really dry years were happening. You were seeing a deterioration across the board in our reach scores. But the Molonglo catchment was doing something a bit different. We were finding that the drier it got, the better the water quality was presenting in our report cards. And so in 2019, at the height of the drought, 11 of the reaches in the Molonglo catchment showed improvement, and this was mostly driven by water quality. By the time the rains came, and we had 13 reaches in that Molonglo catchment show declines, whereas everything else started to pick up. So this was really strange. We were wondering what was going on here. So this is a graph that Isabel put together that looked at urban and conservation, urban catchments versus rural and conservation catchments, and how they react to rainfall. So this is a standardised model that shows and the bar that goes up is showing a decline in water quality. The bar that goes down is showing an improvement in water quality. And this is basically saying that in response to rainfall, the urban catchments get worse and the rural and the conservation catchments get better. We tried to break that rural conservation line up a little bit better to look at trying to distinguish between rural and conservation. And we were also interested in looking at the riparian assessments that we do. And if a riparian condition score is worse, does that then mean that it responds more poorly to rainfall, or does it respond better? And it came up with a really interesting trend there. So you can see that we've just got all conservation reaches in the RARC1, which is the RARC is a rapid appraisal of riparian condition. So the ones on our left here are the best scores, the ones on our right are the worst. And you can see that trend, again, improvement in water quality, the better the riparian score. You start to see an introduction in some of the rural reaches into the second tiered RARC. Then the urban sites start to come in the middle, and it gets more purple and yellow as it goes along. And what do you know? By the time you get to the poorest riparian scores, they're responding poorly to rainfall, and the water quality is getting worse. And that's very much what we were seeing in our catchments. You're seeing lots of impervious surfaces in urban catchments, where you see initially after the rainfall, lots of carbon that's been seen in the landscape gets washed in, lots of bacteria in the water, eating up all the dissolved oxygen. So we had these big dives in dissolved oxygen after the rainfall, and then we got lots of nutrients continuing to come in, lots of algae blooms putting lots of oxygen into the water. So you get supersaturation happening, where you get excessive oxygen, which you might think is a good thing, but it's actually not. So you get huge fluctuations in dissolved oxygen, not that good stabilised that you should have in a healthy river system. Electrical conductivity, the salts and the minerals in the water, while traditionally very high in urban landscapes, was diluted with the rains, but still at degraded levels. So yeah, it highlighted that, you know, those high impervious surfaces racing off the landscape was having a really detrimental effect on water quality and consequently on water bugs as well. And as likewise in our rural catchments, you can see lots of erosion, bank slumping, greater turbidity spikes after rain, and just less able to buffer those impacts from the fires as well. So for areas that were more intact to start with seem to be recovering better from the fires, but just not that resilience in our urban areas. And so I guess it comes down to a greater need for resilience in our landscapes. So regardless of whether we've got extreme wet or extreme dry years, if we've got a landscape that's got better ground cover, more intact riparian zones, better shade and habitat, it's got regular flows, it's got good in-stream habitats, connectivity, refuge pools, all the things Nancy is doing and was referring to in her talk, then we can basically give the landscape a chance to better respond to these extreme events, which are inevitable in the Upper Murrumbidgee and elsewhere. Thank you.